Welcome back, guys. Here we are for installment number 3 of Crash Course in Welding Safety. Today we're going to talk about fire safety. Fire prevention fire is probably the biggest hazard that we face in the shop. It's probably the most likely thing to happen as far as an outside event. It's a very severe risk. Generating heat and sparks. Sparks can travel a long way and ignite flammable materials, and they can happen long after you're done working. Like to say out here that it's not a matter of when or if somebody will catch on fire in the shop. It's a matter of who and when will catch their clothes on fire in the shop. And there's a little joke amongst welders that you know you're a welder if you catch on fire and finish your weld before you put it out. So the fire triangle, there are 3 basic elements that must exist for fire to occur. All right? You must have oxygen, heat, and a fuel. All right? So you must have oxygen. The problem is there's enough oxygen in the air to support combustion. You've got to have a heat source. Well, in the lab, we always have a heat source. We're constantly creating a heat source. And you must have fuel, some kind of flammable material. Okay? So the easiest way for us to prevent fires in the shop is to remove the fuel or not have flammable materials nearby, because we're always going to have oxygen and we're always creating heat and sparks. Like I said, you remove any one of those 3 elements and your flame will cease to exist. Okay? So like I said, fire prevention, discarding of frayed cords and wires. Frayed cords and wires create sparks. They create heat. Sparks are heat. So discarding of those bad electrical wires is a good way to prevent. Keep flammable liquids away from heat. I would think that it goes without saying, but I must say it, don't have flammable liquids such as gasoline containers and other aerosol containers around your welds. They will catch on fire. And eliminate an element of the fire triangle like I talked about. About the only way you can eliminate an element of the fire triangle in our lab is to eliminate the flammable materials, eliminate the fuel. Now, if a fire does erupt, we have to talk about fire extinguishers. There's 4 classes of fire, five classes of fire extinguishers, 5 classes of fires, okay? Class A fires are combustible solids. They leave an ash, A for Class A, all right? Combustible solids are things like a house fire, a trash can fire, anything that leaves behind an ash once it's finished. Class B are flammable liquids or boiling liquids, gasoline fires, other liquids that are flammable. Those are very important to know. You do not want to use something like a water fire extinguisher on those because it will splash them. So you have to know what class fire you're dealing with in order to know what fire extinguisher to use. Class C are electrical fires, electrical current, right? So a fire can be an electrical fire, and as soon as you disconnect the power from whatever is on fire, it then immediately becomes a Class A fire. Class D fires are flammable metals. I don't have a good memory device for that one. Things like magnesium. If you've ever seen a video of one of the new Ford F-150s with the aluminum bodies catch on fire or an engine fire, the engine blocks generally have magnesium in the aluminum, making them very, very difficult to put out. Really, the only way you can put them out is to smother them with sand. And then Class K are kitchen grease fires, and those are similar to a flammable liquids fire, but they do have their own class of fires. Okay? Most fire extinguishers are dry chemical that you see out and about, and those are Class A, B, C fire extinguishers. It's important to not use a water fire extinguisher, which is a Class A only on flammable liquids or electrical fires. Obviously, there's an electrocution hazard, and flammable liquids will splash when you spray water into them, spreading the fire rather than extinguishing it. So it's important to make sure that you match the fire extinguisher class to the class of the fire you're dealing with. How to use a fire extinguisher. One important thing to note about a fire extinguisher is they are generally found by the exits because they are an exit strategy. They are not meant to fight major fires. Fires double in size quite quickly, and they grow exponentially. And so, never turn your back to a fire when you're fighting with a fire extinguisher. Always keep always keep yourself between the exit and the fire, so that you have a way out. And if ever in doubt about getting a fire, put out, just get out of the building, let the fire department fight it. But in order to use one, we use an acronym called PASS. And PASS stands for pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the lever, and sweep side to side. All right, and so that's the acronym that you use. You first pull the pin, then you aim at the base of the fire, then you squeeze, and then you sweep side to side, always extinguishing a fire at its base, not working from the top down. You always extinguish a fire at its base. Okay, that concludes our fire prevention. You will have to identify the acronym PASS. You will have to identify different types of fires and fire extinguishers, and you'll have to identify the parts of the fire triangle and ways to prevent fire in the weld